Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome here if it's your first time. In this video I'm reviewing the ZiiGaat Nuo IEMs. Let's get it. What's cracking audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. So here's the ZiiGaat Nuo. This is a new budget IEM from a new Hi-Fi brand, and we'll start as always with the price, which is $24. So we are definitely deep into that budget territory. That is what the box looks like. Not a whole lot to look at. The stock ear tips are made for pygmy hamsters, or whoopsie. Yeah, so the stock ear tips are decent, but they are very small. They're way too small for my ears. But let's have a look at the IEMs. There they are. And I will detach them from the cable, and let's do the cable first today. It's very generic. I think it's the same one that came with the Chino. I can't remember, to be honest, but it's very generic. It's got a black TPU coating. It handles well. I don't mind it at all. I think it's a pretty good cable. It's better than the 7Hz Zero cable, I reckon, but that's it there. Now for the IEMs, let's have a look. There they are. And I tell you what, even the shells on this one are better than the Chino, believe it or not. It seems like they got the price and the order mixed up. This should have been the Chino price. The Chino should have been this price. But we've got a single dynamic driver IEM. It looks like that. You've got this nice matte black finish. Very comfortable shells, just sort of low key, nothing special about them. So yeah, the shells are great. But you know what? It's time. I just want to dive right into the sound, because there's been so much hype about these, and you're probably wondering, well, I hope you're wondering if I agree with the hype or not. So let's throw up a graph and talk about it a bit. And hey, now I have to remind myself that maybe some people who are watching this video have no idea what a graph means. What they're even looking at. So I'm going to try and explain it in a way that experienced users and new people can understand. But I will say that the ZiiGaat Nuo has a slight V-shaped sound signature. It's a pretty dynamic sounding IEM. It's got an elevated bass, and it's got an elevated upper mid-range as well. It has a pretty subdued lower treble, but it does have a bit of energy in the upper treble. And we haven't seen this kind of sound signature as much recently as we've seen all those Harman IEMs. But let me just say that the Nuo has a warm, balanced sound signature. I think it aims for a pleasing tonality first and foremost. It's got this elevated bass, it's got nice forward mid-range, and it has crisp but non-abrasive treble. I think it's a fun and an engaging IEM, yet it still performs well in terms of technicalities. So let's break it down a bit. I'll start with the bass, and the bass is boosted above neutral, but it is done tastefully, and it doesn't cause any significant blurring or bleeding. Sub-bass notes aren't earth-shattering, like it doesn't have the deepest subterranean sub-bass, but it does rumble enough to get your attention. The mid bass is nice and punchy. It should satisfy just about anyone but die-hard bass heads. There is good control in the bass, and while it is not the fastest bass out there, it has a nice natural attack and decay, and it blends cohesively with the mid-range and the treble. Moving on to the mid-range, and the mid-range sounds nice and organic. It's warm, but it still has ample clarity. Vocals are up front and articulate, but they don't have any graininess. They're not too etched or contrasted. The mids are fairly spacious, and they don't sound congested or nasally, even during complex passages or faster music. Although the upper mid-range is vibrant, it doesn't sound shouty, and it has plenty of detail. And then there is the treble, and the treble's got nice resolution. It's got good resolution and it's got good speed as well. Some people might find the treble a little bit edgy, but for me it doesn't stray into sharpness. It's kind of here where the Nuo gets its airiness, it gets its detail, it gets that nice counterbalance to that boosted mainly mid bass, and it dares to show a bit of sparkle here and there rather than playing things too safe. And what's noteworthy here is that although the treble can hint at a little bit of stridency every now and then, it doesn't sound metallic or scratchy, so the timbre of the treble is pretty good. Now for the soundstage and technicalities, I'd say the soundstage has average dimensions, maybe slightly larger than average, but there's good spacing between vocals and instruments. Detail retrieval is really good, and the instrument separation is very good for a budget single dynamic driver IEM. And the Nuo has good dynamics, makes things engaging, and it maintains emotional impact. Like, this is a fun IEM to listen to in my opinion, but it still performs well technically like I mentioned before, and it's just really refreshing to see a nice fun tuning like this that also has good detail retrieval, good instrument separation, good overall resolution, and a nice build and fit. Alright, time for some comparisons now, and I'm going to pull out the 7Hz Zero. This is the OG Zero, it's not the 02. And the main difference between the Nuo and the Zero is that the Zero has a lot less mid bass. So if you like a little bit more fullness in your lower mid range, a bit more fullness and thump and punch in the mid bass, then you'll probably prefer the Nuo. The 7Hz Zero, I never found it to be lacking in the mid bass really. It does have a leaner sound, but it's kind of the other aspects of the Zero that make it such a great IEM. It is very spacious, the lower mid-range is super clean, it's very resolving, and it's very detailed as well. But the Nuo just sounds, to my ears, a bit more natural. It's definitely a bit more fun, like you can rock out a bit more with the Nuo. Both IEMs have a very similar upper mid-range, but of course in the end it doesn't sound all that similar because the Zero has that lessened mid bass, which makes a big difference. It means the upper mid range is more forward and prominent on the Zero, whereas on the ZiiGaat Nuo I find it just to be slightly more balanced overall. But let's talk about this peak at around 9 or 10 kilohertz on the Nuo. Some people find it a little bit strident. Personally, I don't mind it at all, and it's a really good counterbalance to that sort of fattened mid bass. It helps create nice, clean and sharp transients. It gives a bit of a nice crisp attack to those mid bass notes. And it also assists in detail retrieval and that nice soundstage. And now I'm going to talk about, I'm going to compare the Nuo with the 7Hz 02, but I'm just going to keep the Zero here because the shells are basically identical. But the 02 definitely sounds different from this one, and it definitely sounds a bit different from the Nuo. The 02 has got more sub-bass emphasis. Its sub-bass extension is pretty satisfying. So if you're a bass head, go for the 7Hz 02. But if you just want something that's a nice, natural, full-bodied, punchy sound, I think the Nuo I think it's actually a better IEM than the 02. So the 02, not only does it have more sub bass, but it's got a fuller lower mid range than the original Zero, but it's pretty much on par with the Nuo here. And I should have brought the other shells out just so you don't get confused with all my rambling here, but let me try and define it a little bit better. So the Nuo has got more upper treble presence. The 02 has got more sub bass presence, but in terms of the core mid-range and the upper mid-range, they're very, very similar. They're so close on the graph. But if you change one of the fundamentals, it changes everything. And I think personally that the ZiiGaat Nuo is a better IEM. That of course depends somewhat on personal preference. I do love a nice rumbly sub bass. I dig that a lot. But there's just something about the Nuo, the tonal balance of it just makes everything so engaging and really enjoyable for me, whereas the 02, I don't find it as resolving. But at the end of the day, heck, give me either one and I'm gonna be happy. And let's just circle back, summarize ZiiGaat Nuo. This thing is unreal. It's definitely one of the best sub $30 IEMs. I would put it slightly above the 7Hz Zero, just in terms of engagement, although the Zero is still unbelievably good value. But these are just a little bit more fun, and especially if you're in a noisier environment. Well, me personally, if I'm in a noisier environment, I just appreciate having that little bit extra bass response so I can feel those low notes a bit more. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. That is the ZiiGaat Nuo. It is a $24 IEM. I think it's fantastic. I'm putting it on my best IEMs list on the website. There's a link down below and a link to the full written review as well. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style. And if you are new here and you want to see more audio content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button before you go. And until next time, I'll see you later.